Welcome to the Worth Knowing live stream on my Substack, Worth Knowing with Matt Robeson, and on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And we're going to be talking about the war with Iran with a supremely qualified and insightful guest, Fred Wellman, the former executive director of the Lincoln Project, an Army veteran of Operation Desert Storm and Operation Iraqi Freedom, who's a celebrated political analyst, a YouTube star, and who's also currently running for Congress against one of President Donald Trump's worst congressional enablers. This war with Iran sets up a unique, maybe unprecedented situation for all of us as American citizens, as voters, as active members of the Republic. Never before in the history of any democracy on earth, let alone here in the United States of America, have we ever entered into a war with so little credible information about what we're doing, why, and what it will all lead to. There are very few things that we know for certain so far, but we know this: that the justifications that President Trump has offered for launching the war not only contradict each other, but contradict themselves. For example, Trump's claim that Iran was a week away from having weapons-grade nuclear material and on the verge of having the missile technology to deliver it to our shores. Not only do experts agree that both of these points are totally untrue, but remember that just 6 months ago, Trump was so adamant that we had, quote, completely and fully obliterated Iran's nuclear capability that Pete Hegseth fired a top U.S. general because the Defense Intelligence Agency that he headed up had contradicted Trump.
Hegseth on Friday fired the general who angered President Trump over his damage assessment of U.S. strikes on Iran. Officials gave no reason for the firing of Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz, head of what's called the Defense Intelligence Agency. It follows a June assessment by the DIA that strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities had only set their nuclear program back by a matter.
But not only is this all inherently contradictory, but it's further contradicted by Marco Rubio's explanation that actually we're at war with Iran because Benjamin Netanyahu sucked us into it.
If we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would.
Which is itself contradicted by Vice President JD Vance and his repeated assertions that Trump is who's determining what's happening, all on his own. And what about Trump's assertion that this is really all about regime change, that we're merely setting things up for Iran's own people to overthrow their government?
Take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want.
Well, if that was the strategy all along, let's not forget that mere weeks ago, when Iranians were protesting in the streets over dire economic conditions, Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, Iranian patriots keep protesting, take over your institutions, help is on the way. One of 8 times that he did that. And they did. They followed through. And that led to the Iranian government murdering an official toll of 3,117 people. But independent analysts suggest that the death toll could be over 36,000. And as the Yale historian Tim Snyder points out, these are the very people, the most motivated and courageous pro-democracy Iranians who would have been the vanguard of a new government. So Trump literally called for our to a future in Iran to sacrifice themselves. He assured them that we had their back, except it was actually coming a month later when they had all already been murdered. And what about the most troubling one of all? What about the distinct possibility that Trump launched this war not to back up the protesters or protect us from phantom nuclear weapons or even to support an allied government with a sketchy leader like Netanyahu, but rather because of a personal grudge? Not just that, but a grudge built on a deranged and debunked and pathological conspiracy theory. He posted on Truth Social that, quote, Iran tried to interfere in 2020-24 elections to stop Trump and now faces renewed war with the United States. Is that the cause and effect here? Let's not forget that this is the second time that we've launched a deadly military operation on the basis of Trump's conspiracy allegations, since he similarly claimed falsely that Venezuela had interfered in the 2020 election. And this one is equally bogus, especially since the 2020 effort seems pretty clearly to have been meant to suppress Democratic Party voting and to favor Trump. This one is disturbing because it's not only, therefore, self-contradictory, but it seems to be launching an entire globe-shaking war to set up a pretext for suppressing our own midterm elections this November. What's hard about all these conflicting and contradictory justifications is that they sit atop the Trump lie machine, which has recently veered into a new form of lying that I profiled in my That's Bullshit segment on the Political Rehab show last week. I called it the impossible lie. This is a lie that cannot be true because it breaks the laws of math and is therefore merely an Orwellian test of subjugation on the order of 2 + 2 = 5. But that's not all the challenge here, because despite all of the internal contradictions and lies and fog of war uncertainty, there remains a chance that there could be a good outcome here. That's the somewhat more pragmatic view that figures could emerge and create an Islamic Republic 2.0, like Tom Friedman suggests, like a much less threatening version. Or we could even end up with a functional and somewhat friendly Iranian regime, that we could look back in 5 years or 10 years from the vantage point of a world that's fundamentally changed and say, this was ultimately for the good. And this kind of tension and nuance and complexity is exactly what we do not excel at in American politics these days. And that's what makes the challenge of this moment so unique. We have to be able to deal with two coexisting realities. On the one hand, we have an illegal war launched against the Constitution with no congressional authorization and with almost no attempt at justification to the American people who are in charge via our duly elected representatives. Almost no mention in the State of the Union speech, no run-up of administration officials explaining the situation in depth, which they at least tried to do in the run-up to the invasion of Iraq in 2003, even though they were frequently lying. No primetime address or fireside chat. Only this mess of incoherent and suspected motivations. On the other hand, there's no denying that, as former Associated Press Middle East editor Dan Perry said on this show last week, if we could achieve a regime change in Iran to a government that stops funding terrorist groups and destabilizing the region and murdering its own people, that would be a good thing. And I should note that Dan is currently with his family in a bunker in Tel Aviv. He's among those paying the price for the slim hope that this will turn out well, which is why there are two things we need to hold on to in the coming weeks. First, we need to burn into our brains the uncertainty that we're living with right now, because hindsight is 2020. We tend to so easily forget how little we knew before the fact. That's especially true when we have a government aided and abetted by a right-wing media apparatus that's relentlessly trying to etch-a-sketch our brains about what came before. We can't allow the 2020 hindsight fallacy to erase the incredible risk that we're facing right now and the incoherent stupidity with which we launched this war. The second thing we must hold on to is a glimmer of hope. As I wrote on Substack, from the moment Trump launched this war, many commenters have invoked the 1997 film Wag the Dog to charge that this is all about creating a diversion from the political disasters that Trump himself created. High costs, a sputtering economy, the Epstein files, his paramilitary murdering Americans in Minnesota, and every other piece of pain that he's inflicted in his second term as president. And the key thing to remember is that it's not working. As of today, 1 in 5 Trump voters from 2024 regret their choice. And that includes nearly a quarter of non-MAGA Republicans who wish they had a do-over on their vote. If Trump was hoping for a rally around the flag effect, it hasn't happened. About 60% of us already disapprove of this war with Iran and say we don't trust that Donald Trump has a plan. And there's one more glimmer of hope here. Almost 2/3 of Americans want Congress to approve any further military action. A similar majority of Americans blame Donald Trump's tariffs for their high costs and want Congress to rein him in. The fact that we have a rubber stamp Congress is increasingly infuriating American voters. And that's why Democrats right now have a 10-point advantage on the generic ballot. So there's a real hope that in 8 short months, we might be able to get rid of a lot of these lackeys and get a Congress that will actually be the independent branch of government that the Constitution envisioned and that actually responds to what the American people want. One of the people on the front line of trying to do that is, of course, our old friend.
Hey, Matt, what's going on, man? Good to see you again, brother.
It is great to see you. Thank you for taking a few minutes out from the campaign trail. And I want to focus on your area of expertise. You came out swinging immediately upon this news that we had launched.
Subtle as always, I see.
Yes, pull no punches, saying that this was unjustified, unjustifiable, misbegotten, misguided. Why your initial reaction so strongly?
So for several reasons. One, I did Desert Storm, and then I did Iraq 1. So I often say I invaded Iraq twice under two different Republican presidents. And we know what has to happen as a lead up to war and the justifications for it and the legal justifications for it. Congress has all but walked away from their responsibility as being the co-equal branch of government. And for that reason, we've got Trump running amok. Now, I see the comments here. Oh, well, you're defending Iran. I'm not defending Iran. No one's defending Iran. No one's going to cry because Khomeini is dead. No one's going to ever deny that Iran hasn't been a major sponsor of terror and a destabilizing actor in the Middle East. That's without question. The question is, one, why now? And the manner in which we did it, is it justified by our law? What we needed to defend is our law, our Constitution. I'm defending our Constitution. Look, you can say all you want about George Bush, both George Bushes, but they did make their case to both the Congress, the United Nations before invading Iraq. We could agree whether or not they were right or not in the history, but the fact is they made their case. In this case, we're in the middle of the negotiations with the Iranians. The Omani foreign minister actually released that we are actually getting what we wanted, and then Israel came in and said, hey, Netanyahu said, hey, we're going to bomb. And then Mohammed bin Salman, okay, MBS himself said, I want you to bomb. So Trump got rid of the entire thing and went ahead and bombed. The entire case for making this invasion, making this attack is ridiculous. And of course, we have the shifting reasons for it. Every time something goes on camera is a different reason. They can't even decide if it's a war. Okay. And so again and again, I've been down this road before. The thing is, I know as a soldier of 22 years in the United States Army, is that the moment you fire a weapon, the moment you drop a bomb, all bets are off. The oldest canard in the military planning is the enemy gets a vote, and no good plan lasts first contact. And here we are now. It's obvious we were not ready. We had thousands of Americans stranded across the Middle East because not only did we not coordinate with our allies, which has probably led to the fact that 3 F-15s were shot down by our friends in Kuwait, okay? 3 F-15s and 1 firing from our ally, our ostensible ally. But not only that, we had soldiers in an unprotected command post that didn't have overhead cover. And so an Iranian drone took out a command post. That's where our 6 soldiers were killed. That's unacceptable. And now we've got thousands of Americans stranded across the Middle East, unable to be evacuated because, again, we did not plan or let anyone know we're going to do this. So again and again, what we're seeing is that Trump had no long-term plan. Even in his press conference just this morning, you can watch where Trump's saying, well, you know, it could be a worst case scenario. It could be somebody, you know, it could be somebody worse. They don't know. It literally is helter-skelter, chaos. And what bothers me the most especially is watching Pete Hegseth. Hegseth spent, if you remember, the last 2 weeks battling the Boy Scouts over DEI and the Ivy League colleges over letting our people attend. That's what Hegseth did. Then he did workout videos of the boys. He should have been coordinating with freaking Kuwait. He should have been doing his job. And instead, he was hanging out in D.C. doing videos from his office about DEI. I don't want the Secretary of Defense fighting DEI. I want the Secretary of Defense fighting our wars and preparing our service members for war, coordinating with our allies, so our allies aren't blindsided and we will launch a war. So again, it's not a debate over whether Iran's good or bad. I'm so tired of that ridiculous argument from MAGA and Republicans that, oh, Democrats, nobody gives a damn about the Iranian leadership. They're bad people. They've killed thousands of their people. But I'm also old enough to remember that after Desert Storm, George Bush told the Iraqi people, the southern Iraqi, the Shia Iraqis, the Shia in the southern Iraq, that this is their time to rebel. And they rebelled. You know what happened? They got slaughtered because the government still had the guns. The government still had the heavy weapons. So to say that we're going to tell the people, hey, this is your chance to rise up, how's that worked out in the past? Never. It's never worked out in the history of ever. So these constant made up arguments trying to justify after the fact shows that no one in Washington, D.C., in the Trump administration or in the Republican Congress had any idea what they're going to do. They had no plan for the next steps. I mean, you know how much we got beat up in Iraq because there was no phase 4. For those who are familiar with military terminology, phase 4 is, you know, the first 3 phases is the invasion, taking over. So the stability operations is phase 4. So after the shooting ends, We didn't actually have a phase 4 plan when we got there. It just ended, and then we had to figure it out. I don't think they have a phase 2 plan for this thing. They just said bomb and then see what happens. So for me, as a person who is both a veteran and of multiple war combat tours, I did 3 tours in Iraq. I did Desert Storm. A person who's running for Congress, what I want to see is our Congress do their duty, do their constitutional duty, hold the president accountable, hold the executive branch accountable, and authorize this the way it should be authorized. So right now, Congress has completely walked away from their duty. It's shocking to watch it unfold.
I want to take a moment here to quickly shout out people who are having a vibrant conversation in the chat right now. And I'll point out,
fun.
Yes, a lot of fun. And as always, I even am cool with the trolls in here. You are in a safe space. I prefer that you not be abusive or, don't be awful. But otherwise, let loose. Cynthia Rice points out, when you lose Marjorie Taylor Greene, Eric Prince, and John Bolton, as well as Tucker, your base isn't with you. And I think that's a really astute observation, as we have come to expect from Cynthia. This is something that has split MAGA world. On the other hand, I will point out some dissenting views here. Jim Knopp 3356 just submits, I don't agree, says Trump is a great leader. The world will thank Trump, kept them from a nuclear weapon. And I'll just say, I'm not with you, but that is a legitimate, fair point of view, not a perspective that I share. This would be drummed out of a courtroom procedural as calls for speculation, but I'm going to call for speculation here. I put forward 4 justifications in my opening monologue for what the Trump administration has said we're up to here. We had to do this because they're on the verge of a nuclear weapon. As SNL said, they have been on the verge of a nuclear weapon that could strike us for 15 years, apparently.
No, wait a minute. But I'm positive if you go to the White House right now, the White House website right now from June says we obliterated their nuclear weapon program, and anybody that says otherwise is a liar, okay? It's still on their website.
I played the clip.
2 days. They went to war, and still on the website says that we obliterated the nuclear weapons program in June. So which is it? We
fired the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency for pointing out that we might not have obliterated, and therefore you can't have it both ways. You have Marco Rubio saying, well, no, we did this because Israel was going to strike anyway, and therefore we had to because we were going to get hit ourselves, which has led many in MAGA world to say, well, wait a second. You mean we're Netanyahu's puppet? That's not great. You have the justification that, well, maybe this was a Trump grudge. Maybe this is just all about his paranoid delusion that is contradicted by plain fact that somehow Iran was the reason that he lost in 2020, and they were up against him. That's a disturbing one. Fred, based on everything you've seen, what do you think is going on here? Why are we doing this?
I don't know. So, I mean, the fact is we were negotiating allegedly good faith. I'm not a fan of the idea that Witkoff and Jared Kushner were on negotiators, because last time I checked, Jared Kushner is not a member of the government in any way, shape, or form. So I'm confused about that. But having that, everything we've heard is the Iranians recognize that they are in a position of weakness now, that they were losing, that the Israelis weren't afraid to bomb them now, that we weren't afraid to bomb them, and they were giving in what they wanted. It does appear that Netanyahu and Saudi Arabia, I believe, felt like their opportunity to truly end the Iranian regime was slipping through their fingers, and they pressed the issue to invade. Look, we could just take the president's own statements and Marco Rubio's own statements. We don't have to speculate anyway. Marco Rubio said that Israel is going to strike Iran, and that they believe Iran would then strike American bases. Now, I see somebody in the comments saying, well, it's perfectly legal. It's not. It is not legal. That is not the word in the War Powers Resolution. The War Powers Act is very clear. An imminent or recent an attack on the United States. Okay, not 9/11 was an attack on the United States. War Powers Act. Okay, there was no imminent threat to the United States itself unless our ally decide. Now, what would you thought? Now, look, you could call me a peacenik. You're an idiot. I went to war 4 times. The kicker of this whole story is this week. See this aircraft right here? This aircraft right here. I lost one of those 35 years ago last week. That's an OH-58 Charlie. I lost one of my air crews exactly 35 years ago in Desert Storm. Okay, I know the price of war. I know the price of the lies. And so to say we're going to send our men and women to combat without a plan, without an end goal, I don't feel that burden. I feel that burden. And so to see people trying to say, oh, well, you guys are just chickens. I'm not a chicken hawk. I went to war. Did you? Because I did. I lost men 35 years. So to see the same arguments 35 years later to justify an invasion when there's just not there. And so again, I want leaders who feel the burden of leadership. I want people who understand they're sending men and women into danger and they may not come back. And what have we seen since they launched this attack? Well, it happens. War sucks. You know, bad things happen. War is hell. People who've never served a day in the combat, never lost a soldier, acting like it's no big whoop pisses me off. And it should piss you off. And those military families right now who have 6 of their family members dead, who are in a damn unsecured command post. We've been at war in Ukraine. They've been at war in Ukraine for 4 years in a drone war using Iranian drones. How we were not prepared to have our command post protected from above is a sin. And between that and the F-15s getting shot down, Hegseth should be fired. This is his job, not grooming standards, not fighting wokeness, okay? Not firing general after general, like you mentioned in your opening there. They are failing their duty to serve. And that should anger. I don't care what your political spectrum is. You can't sit back. And this argument about, oh, Obama did it or something, give me a freaking break. First of all, this is now. This is 2026. I don't give a damn what your arguments are over something in the history. Right now, the law is being violated by a man who has no idea what the end goal is, and a Republican Congress, which goes along with everything he says and is willing to take whatever talking point they want and do it. My own opponent, Ann Wagner, within hours of this thing came out, I support the president. Because you know why? She will never go against him because she does not understand what's going to happen to our troops. And don't give me any crap about, oh, it's been successful so far. So far, okay? I remember we thought we were done when I arrived at Mosul in March. On Saddam's birthday, I drove to Mosul, and we were chilling, man. I was getting flowers from the kids. It was great. But guess what? I went back 2 more times. My son-in-law went back. It was a multi-generational war in Iraq. I know where these things go. And anyone who sits back and says, oh, well, that's not going to happen this time, man, have I got bad news for you.
That's exactly the type of uncertainty that I was trying to capture in my opening there, that we just don't know which way this is going to go. And like you, I mean, I'm a Democrat. No one is shedding any tears for the supreme leader of Iran, who is a tyrant, a despot, a mass murderer, an enemy of the United States of America. Of course, we're not shedding any tears for him. But at the same time, I think your point is very well taken, that you want your political leaders to understand the consequences, the gravity of what they're doing, and not be directed by Admiral Bone Spurs. And you have comments like here from Jason Beatrice 7362 saying, I never found WMD in Iraq. In Fallujah, Iraq, I found Iranians, Palestinians, Islamic extremists shooting at us. And that, I imagine, was your experience as well. You invoked Ann Wagner, your opponent. You are running for Congress. I'm going to, I'm just going to be fucking blatant about this right here. Oh, I'm not supposed to curse as much as I do, but
good. Look how little I curse. Do you see how far I've come, Matt? I get credit.
You have come such a long way.
He's watching this because
you have cleaned up your act, sir.
I have.
I'm trying to clean up a little bit. But you know what happens is I get into politics brain. Whenever I used to be running congressional campaigns, my wife would not recognize the sailor I had become in my language. I cursed like there was no tomorrow. Listen, if I worked for I don't know, Barry Weiss or one of these like faux mainstream media outlets that claims to be following journalistic standards, but really is just kowtowing to Trump, then I would not be able to advocate for your election to the US Congress. However, I'm a member of independent media. And even if I were working for one of those outlets, I would still call out the truth like I see it. So you know what I'm putting in the chat right now? I am putting in the chat right now your donation tab. If you are listening to this and you're unfamiliar with Fred Wellman, let's talk a little bit about your opponent, Ann Wagner. Sure. I don't know her from a hole in the wall.
That's her style. That's exactly what she does.
All you need to know about her is that she is a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. I defy her to repeat talking points while Donald Trump sips a glass of water. She is a sock puppet for Donald Trump.
Yes.
And I want to talk a little bit about the point you were just raising about how disturbing that is, because I have no idea if you were in Congress right now, how you would vote on authorizing military action, authorizing war in Iran. But I do know that I would trust your judgment to be independent, to have it be informed by your experience as a military veteran, someone who literally had boots on the ground in the Middle East, and by your deep and abiding respect for the gravity of what we're doing when we commit our armed forces overseas. So talk to me a little bit about your view in general of the role of Congress here and how it's been abdicated.
That's a great place to start. My frustration, one of the reasons I'm running, is that I've watched Congress completely walk away from their constitutional duty. Look, a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, I'm a strict constitutionalist." Then why has Congress given up so much of their power? This Congress right now, especially, is the least effective in history. They don't even pass bills. All they're passing now is they finally get around to passing a spending bill, because the spending bill is the only thing they can pass using the rules, right? It has become a joke. They're not giving any oversight of the government. I mean, the perfect example is the Comey stuff, this Comer stuff. I mean, so they're going to investigate the Epstein files. They bring in the Clintons. Okay, it's just become a joke and a doormat. I talk a lot about Harry Truman. Harry Truman, I should probably change to a Harry Truman painting back here, but I'm from Missouri. I'm running in Missouri's 2nd congressional district. For those who don't know, my district sits outside of St. Louis, Missouri, where it's a beautiful area. It's rolling hills outside of St. Louis, 5 different rivers. Why I have a river in my logo. If you see back there's a river. We have 5 different rivers going through our district. It's a beautiful, beautiful area full of good people, suburban, rural, wonderful place. That's why I'm running here, because what we're seeing is no representation in Congress. We have no one there helping us. We have no one there recognizing us. My opponent, Ann Wagner, has become absent on duty. I mean, look, it's easy to say she hasn't held a town hall. She's never held a town hall. She doesn't respond to her constituents in any way. And when I go about the district, when I talk to people, all I hear consistently is, I got nothing. Oh, give me a break. I got nothing. I get no respect. I get nothing from our member of Congress. Look, we need someone who's going to go and understands, from their life experience, what it is to lead and what it is to feel the pressure. Somebody asked me, how are you going to do in Congress if you're one of 435 people? You're not like being a CEO like you were. It's not like being a colonel in the army like you were. Well, that's the thing. My job is to be one of 750,000 here, the representative of 750,000 people. And that responsibility matters. That means I have to listen to them. I have to do the right things for them. And we're just not seeing that in this Congress. This Congress is completely ineffective. They're not doing any oversight. They're not doing any kind of help. They're not bringing money back here even. It's just become a useless Congress. And I was telling the story of Harry Truman. Harry Truman's Missouri. Of course, our president. It's a famous story. I have many stories about Harry. I could tell you a million stories about Harry Truman. But I've been told a lot about giving him hell. He does give him hell. The stubbornness of Harry Truman and holding people accountable. But what I do believe and I love about Harry Truman is the reason we know who Harry Truman is. The reason Harry Truman became president was the Truman Committee during World War II. And what Harry Truman discovered after he won his re-election was that the base being built in Missouri before World War II, Fort Leonard Wood, was not being built properly. So Harry Truman got in his old Model T and drove by himself down to Fort Leonard Wood in southeast Missouri and discovered, indeed, the contractors were not building it properly. Then he kept driving. He drove all of the South investigating this contract fraud. And he went back to D.C. and he went to President Roosevelt and said, "Hey, you got a problem, bud. We're wasting billions of dollars, millions of dollars on things that are not being built." And so Truman took over. They gave him money, and he started what ended up being called the Truman Committee, which was oversight of our government, oversight of the spending to ensure we weren't being ripped off. Marshall himself gave credit to Harry Truman for winning the war as much as the soldiers in the field, because he kept us from being ripped off by contractors. He kept us from incompetence. He made sure that our stuff was being built safely. So I believe we should have people like Truman who go to Congress and are willing to investigate and ask questions and make sure they're doing the right thing for their citizens. And right now, you don't see that at all. There's no oversight going on. It's just outrageous what's going on. The contracting things. I mean, and then the lie being told. So I'm very, very motivated to run, because I believe we need to have people in Congress who understand their constitutional duty, who recognize they have a job, and that job is oversight the executive, and to do that the proper way and pass laws. And right now, I think all we've got is like I said, Harry Truman called it. He had the Republican do-nothing Congress. I call it the Republican doormat Congress, because all they're doing is just sitting at the door while Trump walks back and forth across them, and that's it. And so that's why.
I want to do
Long
two
answer.
quick things. No. I want to pick up on your answer. I'm going to put that into the parking lot for about 30 seconds because I want to tell a little story about exactly what you're talking about the constitutional duty. And if you revere the Constitution of the United States of America, you should believe in members of Congress doing their constitutional duty. I want to talk about that in just a second. Let me just quickly catch up on a few of the comments going on here.
Yeah, there's a lot. I got sidetracked myself. That's why I was like,
I am trying to listen, process, think, tell the future, one banners,
busy chat today.
Comments. I'm your all-service host here. Lefty Grams is pointing out, you can tell how unpopular Trump's distraction is by the number of trolls parroting the talking points. Epstein, Trump is a pedo. I don't disagree with any of that, Lefty. I want to point out a comment here from Jamie Strickler, 6823. Again, Obama killed an American citizen. Where were you guys at on that? I'm not sure to whom you are referring, but I will say that
the child of a terrorist.
Let's stipulate that. Let's agree. Jamie, let's agree. Let's agree.
Sure.
If you will agree, Jamie, that a whataboutism doesn't address what's going on here. This is not about Trump derangement syndrome, which is something that a very active chatter.
There's somebody to block right there.
Grandy's Garden 175 is saying,
don't you dare come here with this pedophilia shit. When your boy is all over the freaking Epstein files, I want to see this crap from these Trumpies trying to say that we are the ones. We know Trump's in those files. 30,000 mentions. So spare me.
950,000 redactions.
Spare me that. People. Whoever you are, Paul Marino. Give me a break, dude.
So Grandy's Garden 175 says, will liberals ever admit to one thing they like about President Trump, or is the TDS too strong? This ain't TDS. I will admit to two things. I think Operation Warp Speed was a success and a life-saving one. And I do not, for the life of me, understand when your greatest success in your first term as president was meaningfully contributing to the creation in record time of a vaccine that saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Why the hell would you then enable RFK Jr. to shut down vaccines for kids? Why would you step all over that by enabling this conspiracy theorist maniac to take a driving hand in Americans' health? That makes no sense to me. I'll also recognize Trump for the Abraham Accords, which was a genuine step forward in the Middle East and something that he should be praised for. And again, I don't understand why he would let go of that previous success and now launch this completely unjustified. And I don't mean that there couldn't be a justification for it. I mean, he has not bothered to offer a justification for this current war. Now, back to the point that I put into the parking lot. I worked for about a decade as a senior congressional staffer, chief of staff, legislative director, several members of Congress. In 2008, when the world was about to go through the financial collapse that became the Great Recession, the leaders of Congress, President Bush at the time, the Treasury Secretary, came to all of the members of Congress and said, you've got to vote for TARP. If you don't do it, the sky's going to fall. All of your constituents are going to get wiped out. You've got to do this to save the economy. And I worked for a member of Congress who felt some responsibility. We were in the majority, Democrats, and Nancy Pelosi was asking him, do this, Paul. And I remember vividly, we sat down. I'm an economist. My training is in economics. We sat down and I walked through the economic arguments. I had our political director walk through the political arguments. I had our legislative director walk through all of the policy pieces. I applied. You and I are both alums of the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. And I used all of the tools that we were trained to use to help decision makers make a decision. And we ran through it objectively. And he told all of these folks, no. He voted no. After reasoned analysis, he showed some independence. I don't know if he was right. I don't know if he was wrong, but I know that he was thinking for himself. I know that he was independent. And what bugs me as a supporter of yours in your race against Ann Wagner is that she does not. I have never seen an independent firing of a synapse out of that member of Congress. And I know that you would apply them. You feel free to expand on any of that. But when you were talking about Harry Truman and exercising that kind of Missouri famous independence, that kind of, I don't care which party it involves, I want to do the right thing.
Right.
That's what it sparked for me.
And I was asked in my very first interview, one of my first interviews I did after I launched the campaign in October, somebody said, hey, look, right now Missouri is pretty red. We have two Republican senators, Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt. Not a big fan. However, I have to work with them as our senator. He said, if Josh Hawley comes to you with an idea that's going to help your constituents, are you going to work? Of course I will. Because I'm being elected, I'm running as a Missouri Democrat is how I frame it. I'm not running for national Democrats. I'm running because I represent 750,000 people in the 2nd District, Missouri. That's my job. That's what I'm running for. Not just the Democrats, not just the people who vote for me, certainly not just the donors. The goal is to be a representative. It's in the title. I always joke that the name is the job. It's representative. And so if Josh Hawley, what's the term? A broken clock's right twice a day. He's done. He actually did something very interesting here that helped. People don't realize that much of the Manhattan Project radiation stuff was done here. The processing the uranium was done here in Missouri. They dumped barrels in one of the local creeks. To this day, we have people here in this district, in this region, who are getting cancers from just swimming in the local creek. He did a very good thing, and there's now government cleanup going on. There's now restitution for those who got sick. These are good things. Our job is to help all of those folks who are elected to our district. And that's my job when I go up. I will go there to do just that job. And so I'm very proud of the work, that I've done in the past. I'm very proud of the work I'll do there, because it's, in the end, I'm being elected to represent the people of Missouri. So Ann Wagner, I don't think she's representing us. I really don't. She is whatever her political leaders want her to do. She'll be quiet till they tell her what she can say. Her job is be up there, sit in the Financial Services Committee, pass the bills that's handed to her by the corporate lobbyists that she works for, and that's it. And I'm just not that guy. I'm going there to do real things for the people of Missouri and the nation, and I'm proud of the work I've done. I can stand by my bio. So I think what we've got is we have to recognize that people are frustrated now. Look, there's no sense. Here in Missouri, energy prices have gone up 37% this year. It's the highest in the nation. A 60-year-old couple in my district on the ACA exchange saw their health insurance rates go up 299%, 299% in 1 month. Because Ann Wagner, my opponent, voted 3 times against extending the ACA subsidies. Again and again, we see people choosing corporate interest. They see them choosing donor interest over the interest of the people they're supposed to represent. So I think it's time we send somebody up there who's actually going to represent the people they're elected for. So I'm pushing very hard to make sure that people understand. Look, I'm not taking my talk. Somebody asked me, oh, what are the DNC talking points? I don't know. I'm not talking to the DNC. First of all, the DNC doesn't do congressional races. Contrary to popular belief, DNC doesn't run congressional races. I know it's confusing to people. I'm certainly not taking messages from anybody else. So I do my messaging from getting out and talking to people in my district. And what I hear consistently, Matt, the one thing I hear consistently over and over and over is that people are worried about their kids' futures. And that goes across class lines, that goes across race lines, that goes across economic lines. People in very nice places are worried about their kids having a future. People in not so nice places are worried about their kids. Because we all recognize that the American dream that we were raised on, the son of a World War II veteran, I'm a 22 Army veteran myself, we recognize that the things we were promised are not hearing for our kids. People can't buy houses anymore. The largest income gap between median home price and median income in the history of America. The average home buyer, first-time home buyer, is now 40 years old. So again and again, we see life is slipping away from people it's supposed to be for, and we got to do the really, really things. Man, screw you, dude. I got 4 kids, and I went to Army. I went to war 4 times, and I'm a Ranger. So if you want to put it against me, go for it, dude. I think it's so hilarious. These guys always try to go for that. I was like, yeah, I got nothing to prove to you, dude. When did you get your Ranger tab? I got mine in 1993. I just laugh. It's so funny. I love these guys who think they're such tough guys, the internet tough guys behind fake names. It's like, oh my God, you guys are hilarious. If you had any courage, you wouldn't use fake names. It's just, I get it. I'm here because I have served my country willingly. I raised my right hand at 17 and kept serving my country afterwards. The entire thing is so ridiculous. It is exhausting to see. And the thing is, what I love about this is you look at your chat, that's not what's going on in the real world. Because, I go out in the real world. I'm talking to people in rural parts of my district. These guys, these are just pathetic little YouTube snobs, the guys with nothing else to do. Because out in the real world, average Americans can't pay their bills. The working class of our country have they call it the working class basket: rent, healthcare, energy, and food. Okay, All those baskets have been hit like absolute tidal waves in the last year and continuing. Those are what people are worried about. They're worried about paying their bills. They're worried about having a safe neighborhood. They're worried about being able to find jobs. All those things are being attacked. So we're gonna let these guys chit chat all they want. But the fact is, we need people to run for the office who are going to want to do the jobs and make their lives better for the people they represent.
What do you make of the fact? Let's talk wag the dog for a second. I mentioned in the opening that there's certainly a lot of chatter that this is a wag the dog exercise. Again, SNL went right there, right? With like, distraction from Epstein files. My Trump is still not that good. I'm working.
It's pretty good though. It's actually not bad.
Like I said, I've been workshopping. It's not as good as my Obama. What do you make of this? Because you are, it's a really weird thing. It's a really weird thing to be running for Congress. I have managed congressional campaigns. I've been a chief of staff to members of Congress who are in the middle of congressional campaigns. As much as YouTube is not real life, Twitter is not real life, comments are not real life.
Clown show.
You do get a very interesting set of interactions when you're out talking to people. I'm not going to pretend it's scientific, but I've come to think that it's about as scientific as anything else we have. There was a great piece from G. Elliott Morris on Substack today about the fact that you can juke polling results in any direction you want. This is something I've written about myself. We've long known this in the political profession. You can juke polling results to achieve essentially any outcome you want based on wording and question order. You can very, very carefully change the way you word things, and you can get a 60-point swing in the result you want. When you're out talking to people, you really get a feel for what's actually on their mind, and they tend to not bullshit you. I know this because people say the rudest things to candidates that I've managed, to members of Congress that I've worked for. So
even people on your own side.
Right, exactly. If they're on your own side, then
even
they
worse.
feel
that was the one I wasn't ready for.
Enabled.
I think the thing I least expected was like my own people who actually support me outright. Like, dude, you gotta stop doing X, Y, and Z, or because they want you to win and they want your best foot forward. And they want you to do your chance, and so that's what we do. We've got to do it good. And again, what we hear very clearly is very real concerns about being able to afford their lives, right? What they hear very clearly is very real concerns about being able to afford healthcare. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be, that's not clever. None of the things on the internet are real, okay? None of these internet conversations. I don't know if you saw this week, a poll came out for the first time showing low information voters have turned on Trump and the Republicans.
Most important
by the average, it's the most important thing I've seen in years, by 20 points. And what
100%.
That tells you is people who aren't here on YouTube making comments, or people who aren't watching the TV or all that, they realize their lived life, their day-to-day life, has gotten worse.
That's exactly where I wanted to go. That's exactly where I wanted to go.
And that's the fact.
Are you picking that up?
Oh yeah, that's why I keep hearing.
Voters. And so do you think, how do you connect that dot between what you're picking up on the campaign trail, the real pain, forget the political euphemisms, like people are in real economic pain. They really think they can't afford their cost of living. They're really worried about their kids.
There's a story right now that came out 2 days ago or Sunday that shows that 54% of Americans cannot afford a new car, a week-long vacation, or healthcare. That's significant. So it's not even just, I think what we do, there's an organization, and of course my brain, but there's an organization, they started the real cost of living. And the real cost of living includes being able to afford Netflix, being able to afford, a brief vacation with your family, go to Disneyland, whatever it may be. Those things are out of reach for so many Americans. In October, a study came out showing that 67% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 67%. I want you to wrap your head around that number. That means the majority of Americans, over 2/3 of Americans, are living paycheck to paycheck, no matter what their economic level is. That means everyone. So maybe you're living paycheck at a really nice house, but you miss one. And I tell people in the nice neighborhoods I visit that you've seen it. Whenever you talk, the mom gets cancer, the dad loses a job. What happens? House goes into foreclosure. They have to move. This is being seen across the political and across the economic spectrum. People are knowing their lived life is telling them the truth, which is life is getting harder in America, and it's getting harder here. When I first decided to run, I'm from a little town called Kirkwood. It's a beautiful little just suburban oasis. I grew up there. I left there at 18. I left there at 17, actually, go to West Point. And the representative there, who it's Mayberry Central, it's wonderful. But I was talking to the guy, the House rep that represents them. He's a Democrat, and I said, "What's the number one thing you hear on the doors when you knock doors in your district?" And he said the number one thing he hears consistently is, "My kids can't live in this town anymore because there's no affordable housing. There's no affordable places. There's no jobs that could support them to live there. My kids can't live in the town they grew up in because it's too unaffordable now." That should worry people. And that's what I'm telling you. We have to recognize we have a problem where much of the next generation of the American dream is slipping out of the hands of nearly everyone. And if we don't address that, we're going to lose a whole generation of Americans in a very dangerous way. And so I'm really proud of the work we're doing to try and make it better and listening to everyone. And look, I don't ask people. I talk to Republicans because, the great thing about being a veteran, Matt, is I look like this, I can walk in anywhere. People they assume, they probably assume I'm MAGA. Oh, he's an Army Ranger veteran. Oh, he got to be one of us. I'm just a dude. I've raised 4 adult kids. I got 2 more. I've owned a business. I've lost a business. I've been to war, and we know that people's lived lives is not better than it used to be. And for that reason, we owe it to elect people who are going to focus on that. And again, we circle back. That's what Trump promised. Trump promised that this golden age where prices are going to go down. My God, the ironic thing is the one thing that was saving him was that gas is way down. Okay. And the stock market's up. Well, guess what? Congratulations, folks. Because of his bombing Iran without a plan, gas is going up like a rocket and the stock market's falling. So it's just like, you can't even keep that going without talking about it, ruining it. Again and again, we see that what we're doing is we're failing American working class people. We have a K-shaped economy. 10% of our economy, 10% of Americans account for 49% of consumer spending. Wrap your head around that number. Almost half the money being spent in America is by the wealthiest 10%. And the rest are barely making ends meet. And so I have a problem with that. And we should all have a problem with that, which is why I'm working with labor. That's why I'm working with anybody who'll talk to me and say, hey, look, we all deserve a better life. We need people to go to Congress who understand what it's like to lose things. And that's, again, I'm running for them. This wasn't my plan. I moved back here 5 years for my fiance happens to be here for him. I came home 5 years ago from Washington, D.C., and I started getting involved. And every day I was watching over and over my kids fall further and behind. And I think it's time we started addressing that and stopped having these stupid conversations about, these lies. I mean, you could see it, the lies are being said about from these, I guess, anonymous people. Like, look, I got nothing against you. I'm going to work for you too. You can say it all you want. It's great. But the fact is you're going to go home. You have to face your family, and you have to understand that your kids need to have a future. And right now, in many parts of this country, they don't.
I want to quickly get to a few chat items, and then I have a question for you building off your last question.
Sure.
Mimi points out, Mimi W8243, I want Barron Trump drafted. Unfortunately, he also has bone spurs. So I don't know. He's an independent human being. I shouldn't diss he's not a kid. He's an adult now, but I'll leave him out of it. Whatever. Jason Beatrice has been interesting in the chat. He's the guy who said, look, we never found any WMDs. We found a lot of people shooting at us. Goes on to say, I really wanted world peace, but he's pointed out multiple times that his views are he's not voting for Democrats. And I just want to say to Jason, dude, that's cool. That's fine by me. I'm not trying to convince you. I mean, I'm putting Fred's info up here in the chat because I'm voting for him. I can't vote for him. I
can use the donation.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Like I've donated to him. I will again. I support him. You don't have to. Like, I am cool with you exercising your independent judgment as an adult, as a voter, as a citizen. That's all I want Ann Wagner to do. That's all I want my members of Congress to do, right? Is exercise some independent judgment without regard to party first. Right. And without regard to, oh, gee, I really got to do this in order to keep my seat. Believe me.
Yeah.
I have some personal regrets about things that I advised my bosses in Congress to do because I knew they were politically expedient.
Yeah.
There are compromises you have to make. I'm not pretending that politics is simple.
You have to be pragmatic. It's not easy.
You have to be pragmatic. Sometimes you can't. I literally used to say this to the members of Congress I work for. You can't fall on your sword on every issue. you won't survive. You won't make it to your inauguration day. You won't get
Right.
sworn in. You do have to pick your battles. But I mean, believe me, you have to stand for something. That's my only point. And by the
And
way,
that's it.
your friend Jenny, oh, I don't know if she's your friend or if she knows you, Jenny Wolfel says, I love Fred Wellman. He's an American hero and my choice to
Very
bring
kind.
leadership, integrity, and vision back to Washington.
Thank you, Jenny.
Why is the wag the dog not working? I mentioned all the stats at the top. It is spectacularly failing. Americans overwhelmingly already do not support what's going on here. Granted, we've already lost 4 service members. That is
6.
incredibly painful as a toll.
6.
But 6 as of today. And you would think though, that despite that pain, that we would be at a high point after the death of the leader of Iran, ostensibly one of our objectives here, that would be like, okay, we've accomplished some objectives. There's something here, but we're not. We're already starting at nearly 2/3 of Americans against this, and it's only trending downward. Is it because people see through the distraction? Is it because, as you said, low information voters have already turned on Trump? They're not paying attention to this. They're paying attention to their real problems directly in front of them in their lives. Is that what you're hearing on the campaign trail?
I think what I'm hearing is one size doesn't fit all. Clearly, what I'm hearing over and over is I've seen frustration. I've seen frustration from my former Republican friends with the fact that Donald Trump very clearly said he was going to be the peace president. He specifically said he would not attack, would start new wars. He started a lot of new wars. So there's frustration even on the right in this. On the other side of the spectrum is he's never, I think a lot of people are feeling because he just has not made the case. Look, say what you will about all these other presidents. They've made the case of what the threat was or what was clarifying the problem, including, stuff I wasn't a big fan of Libya. I wasn't a big, but the fact is you have to make the case. There's been no case effectively made. It's funny too, because, one of the things we used to talk about a lot when I was working against Republicans in the past was how consistent they were good at messaging, how they were always on message, how they were always good at every day they issued talking points, every photo. And what I've been surprised by is how incoherent the message has been in the Trump administration and the Republican leadership in the last month or two, frankly. They've completely lost the messaging battle because they have no idea. Trump is increasingly incoherent. Trump is increasingly just doing his own thing. And they're all playing catch up, trying to think. I, for the life of me, can't figure out why the main spokesman for this war has been Mark Wayne Mullen. The plumber, the Nepo plumber's son. Okay. Okay. So why is, did you see the bit yesterday where Mark Wayne was on TV saying the smell of war, you'll never forget, bro, you never served. Okay. And so it's so strange. They can't seem to come up with a coherent message. Why? Because I'll tell you why. I don't think they know. And I don't think that Trump knows. I think he just did it. So going back to the original question, is this wag the dog? I gotta be honest with you. I'm at a point where I'm not sure there is that kind of coherence to do that. I'm not sure. It's kind of like the old joke about playing 3D chess. I'm not sure if he's even playing checkers at this point. I think he's eating the pieces. and so BB called him and MBS called him, who's his fundraiser. Hey, look, there's a reason that Trump's first president trips in both terms was Saudi Arabia. Okay, because they're writing the checks. There's a reason we gave chips to UAE because they're writing checks. And so his paymaster and his buddy said, we're going to attack. And we did. I'm not necessarily sure there's any more depth to that. His own son-in-law was the guy doing the negotiations, Jared Kushner. So if they're going to negotiate again and again. So yeah, you can say there's a wag. I'm just not sure that Trump at this point is that sophisticated. And which circles me back to why I'm running for Congress again. Where is Congress? This is the whole point. The leaders of Congress, who are his own party, should be making the case, hey, we have to have this plan. Here's what we're talking about. But it's all come apart. And so now you've got a record number of Republicans. Why are 41 Republicans retiring? Because they know what's coming. Look, it's bad enough having to listen to Trump's talking points and do whatever he wants when you're the majority. At least you have some power. But imagine when we take the House next fall and they're in the minority and still have to do whatever Trump wants. That's why you're seeing a record number of Republican retirements. So I'm not sure this is a wag the dog thing at all. I just think, he's a walking id, if you will. He just does what you saw him today on TV with the German, the German chancellor and everything else, like just blabbering bullshit. Did you see him yesterday during the Medal of Honor ceremony? He started talking about the curtains halfway through the ceremony. I'm not necessarily sure that Trump is able to put together a coherent enough strategy so they're all running around to catch up. And so I think people are frustrated with that. And it's not one size fits all. It was really interesting because I did have this conversation with my guy who knows my polls. And he said, it's very interesting to me that Trump is losing power. But when you do this, when you dig into what, the tabs, right? When you go to the tabs in a survey, it's shocking. It's not one thing. Some people it's immigration. Some people it's inflation. Some people it's this, it's wars. Some people it's whatever. It's the ICE stuff. It's people getting killed in the streets. There's not one single thing that's causing people to turn on this administration. It's this stew, this flood of insanity that's not being controlled in any way by Congress. It's not being oversaw by any way in Congress. You're going to see historic midterm blowout, not so much because Trump is unpopular. That's a part of it, but because the Congress has completely failed in any way to serve as a Congress. And I think that's why I'm running here. And that's my thing. Look, my opponent, Ann Wagner, makes it she's hard running. She's not a white, I joke here, man, you'll appreciate this. Running against like Lauren Boebert or Nancy Mace or MTG. Look, let's face it. Those guys are, those guys are like white sharks, right? They're bad. That's a white shark. Don't get in the water. They're bad, right? It's easy to run against something like that. My opponent, Ann Wagner, is like a jellyfish, man. She floats around doing whatever is needed. She kind of stays that she doesn't want you to see her. She just does whatever has to be done, just like a Portuguese man of war. But the problem, you and I both know, you've ever been in the ocean, a jellyfish will kill you just as bad. Okay. And so it's harder to run against someone who's so good at drawing. You can't stick a jellyfish to the wall, right? And so we have to make our case very clearly that Ann Wagner has failed to serve her constituents. She has failed to do what's right for those people she's supposed to serve here at home. That she's quadrupled her net worth, Matt. She's gone from $5 million in the bank to $26 million in the bank. That's a lot of money. Okay. And I have no problem with somebody getting rich. Good on you. She was an executive before she got the job. I have a problem with you pulling the ladder up behind you. I have a problem with the fact that the people in Missouri too are not getting ahead. And as my opponent and my representative has enriched herself and her donors and her benefactors, she has not made life better in her district. That's why I'm running.
And, I think that's the thing that ultimately it must be hard. You were talking about your pollster and crosstabs, and this is deep in the weeds. And basically you can look in the numbers and polls and you can say like, well, is it this issue that's persuading people? Is it this issue? As I was saying before, it's an open secret among people in campaigns that polls, they're a rough guide, but wording matters. You can juke them. Yeah. You can slice and dice. It's a lot of precision without accuracy, but the 30,000 foot view remains valuable. It still tells you something. And what we know is, as of today, almost a quarter of non-MAGA Republicans regret their 2024 vote for Trump.
Yeah.
That's a hugely significant number. The fact that low information voters, this is not unintelligent voters, this is just voters who don't happen to have enough time in their lives or interest to pay a lot of attention to the news. Low information voters have completely flipped. They've gone from supporting Trump by 19 points in 2024 to him being underwater by 20 points. A massive, massive swing. And so you can see that big picture, people are tremendously unhappy. They think they got sold a bill of goods. But to me, you could point at tariffs. You could point at prices. You could point at his failures in foreign policy. You could point at unleashing a domestic paramilitary to kill American citizens. You could point at any number of things. To me, what you just pointed out about Ann Wagner is the same thing as her icon, Donald Trump.
Right.
It's the corruption. Yeah. It's the self-enrichment while the rest of us are going through economic pain. It's the Trump family, Trump and his corrupt sons, earning literally $10 billion. And there's a lot of discussion in the chat about, I'm not going to do your homework for you. Look, when people say do your homework, they're saying, you don't have to believe me. You can look it up for yourself. So if people don't feel like more homework in their lives, just believe me. Just believe what I'm saying. $10 billion. Okay. I mean, this is how much the Trump family has enriched themselves over the last year.
Communist. I'm just laughing because we're having a conversation about communism in America. God, Lord, man. God bless you, man.
By the way, while we're taking pot shots at people
beta.
trolling,
Oh, wow.
Glenn
Yeah, that's
Crummell
me,
saying
man.
beta alert. Okay, bro. 4 tours for this gentleman right here. I
That's me,
guarantee
man.
you, Glenn, that I bench more than you do. So,
thinking, man, I just wish I was tougher. I could carry this 70-pound rucksack. You know, this is really
yeah. Oh, such a beta
honest,
when you're
you
out
gotta
there
laugh,
fighting
'cause
wars.
I've gotten this shit for years, you know, and it's like, look, you know, you can have your opinion. Yeah, it's funny too, because this is the same person. The people who say things like that with the ones who turn around and say, I love the troops, man. I love the troops, except that one. You know, my favorite thing to do on the comments on social media is like, well, you're not gonna thank me for my service. Look, I don't have anything to prove anymore. What I do have to prove is to people who are going to be the voters of Missouri 2nd District that I'm going to represent them. I'm going to be fair to them. I'm going to hear them. The one thing I say to everybody as I go around the district, the same thing. Look, man, I guarantee you can call. I've talked to our friends. I'm very blessed. We've already gotten 2 big union endorsements, IBEW and Sheet Metal Workers. And when I've told, I'm not labor. I was an officer, then I was a CEO. But I tell them this: when you call, I'm going to pick up the phone and we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to tell you if I disagree with you. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to BS you. I'm not going to make up things. I'll say, hey, here's where I stand. We may disagree on this, and then we're going to work it out. We're going to strike goods. I'm not going to blow smoke up people's backsides about how I'm going to make up. I'm not going to promise the moon and the stars. I'm a pragmatic person. Doesn't make it, you can call that moderate, but pragmatic is a different thing. Pragmatic means I'm going to do what I can do the best I can as one of 435 members of Congress. But I'm also going to use my bully pulpit that I've got to be able to use that power, being that one person of 750,000 that was elected to go represent them, and use that to try and make my hometown better, to make my home district better, to bring the infrastructure projects that we can look, you know, we have 5, my district has 5 rivers, man, 5 rivers. Imagine if we got rain like Kerrville, Texas did. What could happen here? So we've got to think about those things. And look, you know,
eat your heart out, Pittsburgh. You've only got 3. All right.
Yeah,
so
I know, right? I know. It's so funny when I counted it up too. And people, my staff gets worried I'm going to forget the 5 names that I haven't memorized. I'm good. But it's a big deal. And I think we really just need people in Congress who are thinking about their district and not their damn pocketbook.
All right. You know what? I think this is that's a great point for us to start to wrap up, but we have a few important things to do. First of all, you know what? Sometimes even when people are trolling a little bit, they can be a little bit funny, like Paul Sass, whatever. I identify as non-binary. Biden. I see what you did there. That's a little bit funny. And Cynthia Rice, I'm sorry, I take it all back. I have family from Pittsburgh. Okay,
Pittsburgh's a great town. I love Pittsburgh.
It's just deficient in number of rivers.
It's a pretty town too. I love Pittsburgh.
Look,
I was not ready for how pretty Pittsburgh is when I went there last summer.
Yeah, no, Pittsburgh's awesome. It's actually it's
beautiful
amazing.
town. I had no idea
a misimpression
how tree-lined it was. Yeah, I know. I really totally did not understand how beautiful Pittsburgh was.
So look, you know, I've said this before. As a staffer, I never tried to replace my work, my accomplishments for the work and accomplishments of the people who are actually elected. But you do a lot of work on behalf of elected representatives. All the work that I did, all the accomplishments that I tried to set the table for the members of Congress I work for, every accomplishment that we achieved, things that are in law today, we achieved working with Republicans. And the tone that I've tried to set on this show, that I think you set when you're on YouTube and in your comments today, is not anti anyone. It's not shutting out anyone's point of view. I can even laugh at funny jokes about Joe Biden. Like, it's cool for us to, you know, like we can have a sense of humor about this. We can engage with each other. We don't have to outright troll each other, and we can listen, which is really your point. And, you know, so look, I even host on Fridays a show called Political Rehab with another guy named Matt, who is a current Republican political operative who's run campaigns for some of the biggest names in the U.S. Senate who are Republicans. And so I urge people, first of all, I'm going to do my own little plug. Please come subscribe to the Worth Knowing YouTube. We're live streaming there. I've got it right on the bottom scroll. If you like this kind of thing, and you like sensible analysis without all the jibes and hot air and hot takes, that's what we do. And we can actually get along with Republicans, and we can listen to one another. And the other thing I'll say one final time is, if you like what you're hearing from Fred, consider a donation. help him out, because that's exactly the kind of thing that I know you will eventually do in Congress. And listen, if this generic ballot is any guide, you're going to be there, man. This is going to happen. I'm feeling really.
I appreciate that.
I'll give you the last word, and then
you can go to my website, wellmanformo.com, or learn more. And look, I really thank you. I think Jordan Gentleman was saying that. Look, I'm not running. I'm running as a Missouri Democrat. I'm running to represent the people of Missouri 2nd District. I'm not running as AOC. I'm running as me. This is who I am. I'm a guy who grew up in Missouri, went in the Army for 22 years, ran a business in DC, came back for a wonderful human being who brought me back to my hometown. And what I see is people who need help, and they just are crying for representation that represents them, that reflects their lives. My life's been hard. I've lost it a few times. I've had a very tough life, and I lost my first wife in a car accident when I was just 29 years old. I lost my first men in combat before that. I've gone through things that people understand, and I think we need representatives finally who go to Washington, D.C. and understand what lived life is like, instead of the perfect little hatched out of a box. Okay. And so I am really proud of the campaign we've built. We've built a very strong campaign because we recognize that this is going to be hard to do. We do need help from outside the district. I'm very proud. We're closing in on almost 15,000 donors from across the country. I did that on purpose because we need help in Missouri. And if we flip my seat, if Missouri 2 flips, there's a very good chance we're also going to flip down ballot seats that'll break the supermajority in the state house here, meaning that the Republicans are going to finally just have to talk to us. So again and again, I think people are hungry for change. From day one, I've told my campaign, we're going to run everyone in the district, every single corner of the district, every rural part. I'm out there. I don't mind driving an hour and a half to go to a meeting because it's worth it. But I think people are hungry for just something to just damn listen to them. And the one thing I'm proud of is I am more than happy to go to you and listen to you. And if you're Republican, if you're whatever, as long as you call me names all day. Look, man, I ran the Lincoln Project. You can't. There's nothing new under the sun. You can't call me. I heard it all, man. I mean, I've been doxxed. I got doxxed again last week because why not? I mean, look, dude. Whatever. But again, I'm not here to blow smoke up people's asses and I'm telling the truth. The truth is, we as a country deserve better than what we've got right now. We as a country deserve people to go to Congress who aren't there just to get reelected in 2 years. We in the country deserve people to go to Washington, D.C. and do really freaking hard things and fix things. And if we're not sending those people, you're sending the wrong damn people. So I hope that people look at my history, look at my bio, look at what I stand for, really stand for instead of lies, and you'll find out that I'm actually just a dude who wants to make life better for my friends and neighbors. That's it.
And I want to say thank you to you for being on the show, for all of your insight, your experience, and your service. And I want to say thank you to everyone engaging in the chat. I was saying this at the end of the Political Rehab show with Republican Matt the other day, that it's not a sign of a country in decline to have big arguments.
Yep.
It's a sign of a country in decline when we stop thinking that the arguments matter and that they're even worth having at all. And so I continue to not mind if people have differing points of view here. Keep having a respectful argument, and I'll keep listening, and I hope you will as well. And you'll come over and subscribe. Worth Knowing .substack.com is my Substack.
Or fpwellman.substack.com. We're broadcasting on too. We are broadcasting on fpwellman.substack.com.
Yes, we are, and we're on your Twitter. We're a lot of
everywhere.
places
Twitter,
right now.
Facebook. I went crazy today, man.
We're everywhere, man. We're everywhere. All right. Thanks so much, Fred Wellman. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And again, thanks to the chat. I mean, I kind of busted some chops in there. That's what I do. But I honestly, I nothing I love more than a good back and forth. As long as it stays, let's actually have a conversation about the real issues and not just slurs and put downs that aren't true. I got nothing to prove about who I am. I've done it. I wear my history in my sleeve. I got the scars all over my body from 20 years of service. So you could throw it all at me, but let's talk about what this country needs and we'll get somewhere, I think. So thanks for your time, brother. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you to everyone. Stay safe. Be well. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.